lost it all. We always thought we'd make the world better, but look at us now, we've fallen so far. In a world we forget about our mothers. Maybe we deserve to fade out, 'cause if we don't give a fuck about each other, it's us. If we fall, blame it on the humans. Yeah, if we fall, the face is always always.
weapon. You are a tool.
Lies soothe the mind.
Whom should I obey? Master Zed or the farm implement with delusions of grandeur?
An ally has been slain.
You are not worthy of the power you hold.
If I had a paper heart, that would make
Underestimate me and your peril. Whom should I obey? Master Zed or the farm implement with delusions of grandeur?
then you go and kiss me, and
Legendary.
One of the most common requests that we get is to make a guide on how to escape each rank. You asked, and we listened. I'm Panther, a challenger player on the NA server, and today you'll
Now that we're into the replay, we're looking at Caps. He is just a trickster playing on Syndra here. And if we reveal the Fog of War briefly, you can see that he is up against a Fizz, an assassin in lane who you might think is kind of spooky in the early game. But actually, you need to have a plan when you go into game, and you need to act on that plan in order to win your lane. And here, the plan might not be obvious. Caps knows it, but do you? Beyond getting this early chunk on the Fizz here, and unfortunately Thresh wasting his Ignite for no kill, Caps knows that he needs to pressure the Fizz all throughout the early game, because while Fizz does not have all of his mobility spells, Syndra has the advantage. It is the exact opposite of what most people think. You might think that you want to farm and play safe in the lane, but that is exactly what you don't want to do, because you are giving an assassin a free lane and giving them all the time in the world that they need to hit their level spikes in order to pressure you. Think about Fizz's level 6. It can absolutely destroy Syndra, especially since he's immobile. If the fish lands, he's probably dead, and so he needs to do something before then. And right here from level 1, you could see that Caps is massively shoving the wave. He just sank 3 Qs into the backline wave in order to shove it really hard and put Fizz in a position where he can be pressured. Right here, he uses his E to pick up the minions and set up the wave so that he can farm under tower. And because of that, Caps gets several autos in and a Q for harass. You need to make sure that every single moment that you get in the early levels is used to abuse your range advantage. There is no time for you to waste, and you always want to make sure that you're hitting them with every ability and every auto attack you can. Don't sacrifice CS for it, but still pump out the damage. You need to apply that pressure. You saw the Fizz is just about half health, and this is because of all the harass that Caps has put onto him. And now he wards just to make sure that he can't quite get ganked from the Gragas on that side. Now here, he does take a bad trade, and it looks pretty rough for him, but Fizz used both his summoner spells. He actually ends up dying here to the Graves because the jungler was close by, but that was some really sick, perfect mechanics from Caps. He used his corrupting potion as well as his biscuits in order to sustain through the ignite and damage that Fizz was bringing. That isn't really something that you're expected to replicate in your games. That was literal perfection, but the lesson is still there. You need to be able to bait them out into bad positions in fights that they can't win because you're pressuring them so hard. Caps actually has teleport here, but he chooses not to he chooses not to teleport back to lane because he just simply walks back after the jungler killed him. He could have simply run away and teleported back to lane to continue pressuring Fizz in the early game with basically nothing lost. That would probably be how you would play it out, because you're probably not going to be mechanically perfect, because if you were, you wouldn't be watching this and you would already be rank 1. Now that Fizz has died and the lane's back even and everybody's back in, you can see that Caps is not letting up on the pressure. And it's not just because his jungler's there. You can see that he is simply winning every trade. he is well over 100 health above the Fizz. And it's actually a fiesta here in the mid lane with 3 people showing up. Thankfully though, they do manage to get some kills, as there's just a numbers advantage there, and while Graves does die on the end side, they get the larger end of the stick. They get 3 kills for 1, and that's pretty good. Still, remember the lesson is still there. You could have chunked out a Fizz like that in your game if you went aggressive on him. You gotta remember that you have the ability to disengage with your E, as well as the fact that your E plus a Q could stun, and your W also slows too. Next lesson is managing the wave. We saw that Caps shoved the wave in at level 1. That's pretty basic and doesn't require a lot of thought, but there, Caps did something really clever. Let's go back and go over it once more. So you can see here that the Fizz is dead and that Caps wants to shove. He's again queuing the backline, and he's trying to pick up every CS that he can. He uses his E2 to push even faster, and then he picks up the cannon and throws it into his tower. This does 2 things. 1, it lets his wave crash into the enemy tower, which will deny minions faster and could potentially cause a slow push that Caps can then freeze on. Beyond that though, it also guarantees that he gets the cannon minion killed as fast as possible so that he can recall as fast as possible. The extra tower shot damage causes the cannon minion to die that much faster, and having those seconds saved allows you to make another play in the future. This is exactly why he does what he does, and you need to do something like that too in your games. You want to stretch every single lead and advantage that you can get, whether it be by picking up cannon minions and throwing them into your tower like that, just to make sure that you get
wave management. Your main goal as a mid laner is to carry your games. To do that, you have to get your items earlier than your opponents, and that's why farming is so crucial. A lot of players, as they learn mid lane, think that getting as many kills as possible is the quickest way to get ahead. But I need you to remember that 16 to 17 CS is the same as 1 kill in the terms of gold value. What that means is that learning how to CS effectively will most certainly get you ahead in all games, even if you don't score any kills at all. It's important to know that this CS gold tracking will only work through early game and on laners, as jungle camps are worth different amounts of gold even though they count as 4 CS. As for laners, the amount of cannons that spawn in waves go up as the game progresses, and cannon minions are worth more gold as the game goes on, starting at 60 and ending at 90 by around 17 minutes. At 15 minutes, cannon minions spawn every 2 waves, and at 25 minutes, cannon minions spawn every wave. You should be aiming to get 10 CS per minute, but it won't be achievable every game, because you might be against a lane bully or have high pressure from the enemy jungler. So 8 or 9 CS per minute is still pretty good. What you will notice is that even though your lane can be 0-0 and it might seem even, if you're 30 CS ahead of your opponent, that means you're pretty much a full small item ahead and will win every single trade. Let's see what that actually means in terms of numbers. Example 1. You're roaming around the map a lot and have 2 kills and 40 CS at the 10-minute mark. In the meantime, your lane opponent was farming uncontested and has 90 CS at the 10-minute mark with 0 kills. Who's actually ahead in this situation? If we do some simple math and we assume that 1 CS gives you about 17 gold and 1 kill gives you 300, your total net worth is about 1275. At the same time, your lane opponent who was farming uncontested would have at least 1500 net worth from CS and around 300 more by getting 2 bars of turret plating, amounting to over 1800 net worth total. That being the case, your lane opponent is not only ahead in terms of net worth, but he's also going to be about 2 levels higher than you. If you're playing a weak early game champion like Veigar, Anivia, or Vladimir, you want to stick to the safer playstyle and wait for opportunities to present themselves and punish enemies when they overextend. In summary, you really need to remember one simple thing. Going for greedy plays and roaming can work in some games, but it's a very risky strategy, which in the long run is not as effective as learning how to become the master of CS and stomp your lane. Some champions that are very strong early on and have incredibly good mobility, such as LeBlanc, Zed, or Talon, are the exceptions to this rule. If you're playing such a champion, roaming after you push your wave to the enemy turret is a good idea. However, if you are going to miss out on a ton of CS if you roam, then the opportunity cost is simply too high, which will surely make you fall behind most games. What you need to take away from this is that proper wave management is the only way to make roaming work. The most basic type of practice you can do to warm up for games, or simply to increase your ability to CS, is log into a custom game without any bots or players, and simply try to get 100 CS for every 10 minutes of the lane. This is something that will enable you to have better awareness of exactly how your champion can CS at different stages of the game, which will ultimately lead to better CS mechanics when you do play ranked. I highly recommend practicing CS this way until you can get 10 CS per minute each time you try. Once you've gotten to the point where each time you practice in a solo lobby, you reach the 10 CS per minute goal, it's time to move up to the next level. Add a bot as your lane opponent and try to reach the same CS ratio again. I recommend starting out against a range bot. such as Lux or Zyra, with skill shots, so you can learn to CS while dodging their projectiles and trading. The laning stage is a crucial part of League of Legends that a lot of pro teams recruit unknown players only because they were able to stomp tier 1 pros in lane. This goes to show that if there's only one skill you need to master in League, it is laning. Macro knowledge is key as well, but learning to be a dominant laner will surely make you climb fast. That's why it's important to put in the work in custom lobbies, focus on one thing at a time, and build your way up, so you can really flourish once you start grinding ranked. First, let's talk about freezing. Manipulating the minion wave in order to stay in a certain position, usually close to your tower, is called freezing. It's one of the most complicated types of wave management, since you constantly have to pay attention to both your and the enemy's minion wave. It's best used if you are ahead of your opponent and want to extend your advantage even further by making him lose CS, or overextend and put himself in a dangerous position. In order to freeze, you want to let your opponent push and last it as late as possible. That way, you're making sure that the wave is going to be pushing towards you. Once the wave has reached this position, you want it to stay in, close to your tower, just outside of tower range. You want to make sure there are 2 to 3 extra minions in the enemy wave. If there is more, you want to thin the waves by killing the extra minions. It's important to kill the minions at as low of health as possible while freezing, so that your wave doesn't push back too early from your tower. Once you've successfully managed to freeze the wave, your next goal is maintaining the freeze while zoning your opponent off of the farm by being aggressive whenever he goes for a CS. To maintain the freeze, there has to be at least 2 or 3 more minions in the enemy wave at all times, since your next minion wave, the reinforcement, is going to arrive at the lane faster than your opponent's, which means the next wave could naturally start pushing towards your opponent if there are no extra minions. If your opponent tries to break the freeze by killing a few